My father was still clapping when the lawyer cleared his throat. 350 guests, the Plaza Ballroom glittering gold. Miranda smiling like she'd just been crowned Queen of Manhattan. And then, actually, the attorney said, voice steady, cutting clean through the applause, there is another heir. The room froze. My father's champagne glass slipped from his fingers. It didn't shatter. It rolled in a slow, humiliating circle across imported marble. Miranda's smile twitched, just slightly, like a crack forming in porcelain. And me? I was still seated at table 27, near the service door, exactly where my mother told me to sit so I wouldn't draw attention. But now, every single eye in that ballroom was on me, because the envelope in my hands didn't just rewrite my future, it erased theirs. My father tried to laugh it off, tried to say it was a misunderstanding, tried to escort the attorney out like he was removing a drunk guest. But the red wax seal was real. The signatures were real. And when the lawyer announced I now owned 51% of Witford Properties, Miranda stopped breathing. But to understand why my father walked out of his own company 3 days later with security escorting him, we have to go back to 3 months ago. For 20 years, I was the punchline. Miranda was the headline. At every dinner party, every charity gala, every Christmas under crystal chandeliers in our Upper East Side townhouse, the script was the same. Miranda's top of her class. Miranda's headed to Harvard. Miranda will take this company global. And me? And Dulce is creative. That was the polite version. The real version happened in private. She's slow. She can't handle pressure. She wouldn't survive in leadership. I was diagnosed with dyslexia at 7. Letters swam, paragraphs shifted. Reading took 3 times longer. Instead of tutoring me, my parents invested in Miranda, Juilliard violin coaches, French immersion camps in Switzerland, an SAT tutor who charged $400 an hour. When I asked for structured reading support, my mother sighed. We can't pour resources into something that won't produce results. I was 12, so I adapted. Audiobooks, color-coded diagrams, flowcharts instead of paragraphs. While Miranda memorized case law, I mapped systems. I saw how money flowed, how people connected, where cracks formed. Grandma Eleanor was the only one who noticed. You don't read slower, she told me once. You read differently. That's power, if you learn how to use it. I didn't know then that she was preparing me for war. After college, a state school, not an Ivy, I applied to Witford Properties. My father hired me as an administrative assistant. Salary, $42,000. Miranda, chief legal counsel, $280,000 plus bonuses. I fetched coffee. I scheduled meetings. I was seated near the copy machine while my sister sat, at the head of the conference table. But I listened, and I noticed something. Deals that looked profitable on paper weren't. Partnership structures that seemed clean weren't. My father wasn't building. He was squeezing. Aggressive leverage, short-term gains, quietly alienating legacy partners my grandmother had built relationships with for decades. And then came April 2024. The email. Position restructuring. Effective July 1st, your role will be eliminated. I was being erased. Not because I was incompetent, because I was inconvenient. That night, I heard them through the office wall. We can't have her here when Miranda takes over, my father said. It looks bad, my mother replied. The CEO's sister working as a secretary. And she's not leadership material. I pressed my palm against the wall. For the first time in my life, something inside me didn't shrink. It sharpened. May 15th, Miranda's graduation celebration at the Plaza. 350 guests. Emerald gowns, custom tuxedos. A 12-piece orchestra playing Gershwin. My mother seated me at table 27. Near the service entrance, she whispered. Try not to draw attention. My father took the stage. Effective immediately, Miranda Witford will inherit my estate and become future CEO of Witford Properties. Standing ovation. Camera flashes, and then the silver-haired attorney approached me. Jonathan Ellis. "My condolences," he said softly. "Your grandmother left you something. It was to be delivered the day your father publicly disinherited you." My heart stopped. Envelope, red wax seal. I stepped into the hallway and opened it. 51%. 51% of Witford Properties shares. Controlling interest. But there was a clause. I had 72 hours to act. If I didn't request an emergency board meeting within that window, the will became void. My hands were shaking so hard, I almost dropped it. She'd known. Grandma had known exactly what Gerald would do, and she'd prepared for it. That night, I opened the wooden box she'd given me years ago. Inside, the original 1965 Founders Agreement, permanent voting rights, and a USB board meeting minutes from 2018, my father attempting to reduce her voting power because she was too old to understand modern business. He tried to strip his own mother of control, and failed, because she recorded everything. I didn't sleep. By 9 a.m. the next morning, I'd called Margaret Coleman, one of the original board members. "I've been waiting for this call," she said. Within hours, we secured signatures for an emergency meeting. May 18th, 10 a.m., Whitford Tower. I didn't confront my father, didn't argue, didn't warn him. He found out about the meeting through formal notice. Miranda called me, furious. "What did you do?" "Just my job," I said calmly. He stormed past my cubicle that afternoon. "She's not a threat," I heard him tell someone on the phone. "She can barely read a spreadsheet." I smiled. Underestimation was my greatest asset. I printed copies, backed up files, rehearsed my statement, not emotional, not reactive, precise. This wouldn't be revenge. This would be governance. May 18th, 9:45 a.m. 42nd floor, boardroom, Italian marble, oil portraits, 12 leather chairs. Security almost didn't let me in. Miranda laughed when she saw me. "You work in the copy room." Margaret Coleman stepped forward. "I invited her." Silence. The meeting opened. I stood at the far end of the table. My father tried to stop me before I began. "She's dyslexic," Miranda added sweetly. "Reading legal documents might be difficult." The room shifted uncomfortably. I didn't react. I placed the will on the table. "This supersedes the 2015 version," I said evenly. Jonathan Ellis confirmed its validity. You could hear breathing change. Then I played the 2018 recording. My father's voice filled the room. "She doesn't understand modern business. I moved to reduce her voting rights." Dead silence. The board chairman looked pale. The legal counsel stepped out. 45 minutes later, they returned. "The 2019 will is valid. Dulce Witford holds 51% controlling interest effective immediately." Miranda's composure cracked. My father's face drained. As majority shareholder, I had the right to remove him instantly. I could have. Everyone expected me to. Instead, I stood. "I propose a vote of confidence." Gasps. "If the board has confidence in Gerald Whitford as CEO, he remains. If not, he resigns." 7 hands rose for no confidence, 4 for confidence. 1 abstention. 7-4. My father had just been removed from his own empire, and it wasn't me who did it. It was the board. He looked at me. Not angry, not shouting, just stunned. For the first time in 28 years, he saw me, and he realized he had never understood me at all. The vote was 7-4. 7 people, seasoned executives, investors, longtime board members, chose no confidence in Gerald Whitford. Not because I begged them, not because I threatened them, because the evidence was undeniable, and because, deep down, they'd been waiting for someone to challenge him. He didn't argue when the chairman informed him he had 30 days to resign under Section 14.3 of the bylaws. He didn't slam the table, didn't threaten lawsuits. He just stared at me, and for the first time in my life, I saw it. Fear, not of losing money, not of losing status, but of losing control of the narrative. For 28 years, he controlled the story. Miranda was brilliant. I was slow. Miranda was the heir. I was the embarrassment. And in one board meeting, that story collapsed. By that evening, whispers were already spreading through Manhattan's real estate circle. Did you hear? Secret will. Founder's granddaughter. Gerald tried to strip his mother's voting rights. The next morning, 3 senior executives requested private meetings. Not with him. With me. One said something I'll never forget. Your grandmother built this company on loyalty and long-term relationships. Gerald built it on leverage and intimidation. We've been waiting for balance to return. Balance. Not revenge. Not chaos. Balance. On May 19th, at exactly 4:02 p.m., Gerald Whitford signed his resignation letter. 30 days? He didn't even take 30 hours. He knew fighting would expose more. The 2018 vote, the internal complaints, the investor dissatisfaction, and most of all, the recording. He stepped down to pursue personal opportunities. That's what the official email said. No mention of no confidence votes. No mention of secret wills. No mention of a daughter he called slow. But Manhattan knew. And Manhattan talks. Invitations stopped. 2 charity boards quietly removed him. A major investor postponed a $12 million expansion until new leadership stabilizes. The empire didn't collapse, but his version of it did. Miranda didn't call for 2 weeks. When she finally did, her voice wasn't sharp. It was small. You didn't have to humiliate him. I didn't, I replied calmly. He humiliated himself in 2018. I just presented the evidence. Silence. I didn't know about the vote against Grandma, she said. I know. That was the first honest thing between us in years. She had been the golden child, but golden children are still controlled. Her entire identity had been built around being the successor. Without that, she was just Miranda, and she didn't know who that was yet. My mother asked to meet in neutral territory, a cafe in Midtown. She looked older, smaller. I'm sorry, she said, for the way we treated you. I didn't accept it immediately. Apologies don't erase decades, but they matter. I needed you to see me, I told her. I see you now, she whispered. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. But for the first time, she wasn't defending him. And that was new. The board offered me 2 options. Step in as acting CEO. Take a strategic advisory role while we searched for new leadership. I chose neither. I don't want power for the sake of power, I told them. I want structural integrity. Instead, I created a new division. Sustainable development, long-term investments, ethical partnerships, community-first expansions. The kind of work my grandmother believed in. My salary increased. Yes. My title changed. Yes. But the real shift? People listened when I spoke. Executives who once ignored me now asked for my analysis. Not because I was the founder's granddaughter, because I saw things others missed. Patterns, risk clusters, financial blind spots. The very thing my parents called weakness became my strategic edge. 3 months later, he tried. Of course he did. A quiet attempt to contest the will. Private pressure on 2 board members. An investor whisper campaign suggesting I was too inexperienced. It backfired. Jonathan Ellis had prepared airtight documentation. The founder's agreement from 1965. The permanent voting clause. The notarized 2019 will. Every loophole sealed. When his legal counsel finally withdrew the challenge, even he looked tired. That was the moment I realized something. He wasn't a villain in a movie. He was a man who built his identity on dominance. And when dominance disappeared, he didn't know who he was. Justice wasn't him losing everything. He didn't. He still has money, still has property, still lives comfortably. Justice was this. He no longer controls me. He no longer defines me. He no longer gets to say who I am. For 20 years, they called me slow. Now, investors ask for my projections. They called me incapable. Now, I sign off on expansions. They said I couldn't handle leadership. Now, the company moves differently because I'm in the room. Not louder, stronger, smarter. I used to think winning meant making them hurt the way they hurt me. But real power isn't destruction. It's choice. I could have fired him immediately, dragged him publicly, shamed him in headlines. Instead, I gave the board the choice. And they chose truth. My grandmother didn't leave me 51% because I was perfect. She left it because she knew I wouldn't become what he became. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever been the lesser sibling, if you've ever sat at table 27 near the service door, listen carefully. Being overlooked is painful, but being underestimated, that's leverage. You don't need an inheritance to rewrite your story. You just need the courage to stop believing theirs. And the moment you do, everything changes. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to the Her Revenge Stories, and let me know in the comments. Have you ever been underestimated? And what did you do about it? Because sometimes the quiet one at the back of the room is the one holding 51%.